All right, welcome everyone to the journey where we're highlighting stories, testimonials of folks that are in recovery, and in hopes that there's folks out there that are going to hear these stories and be able to connect with. And our prayer is that it's going to bring hope and encouragement for people to look at changing some things that maybe they're for the first time acknowledging that they have problems with. So today, it's my pleasure to introduce my friend Mike. I told Mike that he has a half an hour, so he needs to shorten his 10-hour testimony down to a half an hour. So we'll see how that goes. So I've known Mike my entire recovery. He was my first roommate in early recovery, and we've been through a lot, good and bad. And so he has a powerful story. He's a professional business owner here in town. He's had a number of businesses, and I think he'll be able to resonate with a bunch of other viewers. So, Mike, tell us who you are, brother.
All right, will do. Well, my name's Mike, and I guess from being in recovery, I'm used to identify myself with everybody else as an addict primarily. So I say that. My name's Mike, and I'm an addict. And keep it simple. And, what I learned over the years is I have an opinion about everything. And in going to some different fellowships to try to get a better perspective on my life, I learned that it's important to honor the traditions of those fellowships. And so if I do go to an AA meeting, which I do sometimes, I identify as an alcoholic because that doesn't start controversy within a meeting and confusion for people. So it's not always about me. One of the greatest lessons of recovery. Wow, where do I start? So I was born right here in York, Pennsylvania. I guess, had a childhood that was basically, had a lot of fun, played real hard, was outside a lot, cornfields and quarries and exploring caves, and the guys were always getting our stuff together and going on long hikes and just having a lot of fun. I see these kids these days just playing these video games. I think, man, they have no idea what kind of exciting and explorations we did when we were younger. But we also got into some shenanigans, and not unlike Tracy there, I have a pretty good sense of humor, and just like to have a lot of fun, and played some practical jokes on people. Some were pretty fun, others were a little destructive, so I got in some trouble. As we got older, with that kind of adventurous mindset, it became an option to begin to share in starting out with somebody able to get a six-pack and having a couple beers together at 15 years old or whatever. Before that, at my parents' house, I would have an occasional sip of their port wine that they would drink sometimes. I was occasionally, looking back, I called myself occasionally mom's little bartender. She wanted to have a drink and stuff was sitting out on the counter. I'd certainly offer to mix some stuff up for her after I learned how to do it. And there would be occasion where, I don't know how it happened, but I might get some on my lips, you know what I mean? So was always curious about it. And then got a little older, 15 and a half, and then some other options came online, and, always willing to take risks. I kind of knew I probably shouldn't, but at some point, some of the people that I was close with were doing doing some things, so I began doing some things myself. And, you know, it started out with it was a lot of fun. We just got it in. Like, we just had a lot of fun. And I went to the military at 17. And I grew up real fast in the military. You know, went to boot camp in San Diego, went to school for 7 months in Memphis, Tennessee, and met people from all over the country. And boy, oh boy, there was a whole world out there that York, Pennsylvania didn't know about, and I began to know about it. So it didn't take too long to realize that I was not a social user. I was pretty heavy, like to party pretty regularly. Back then in the military, once I got out of boot camp, you know, you learned that almost everybody had a few Heinekens for lunch. Like, that was just status quo. That was standard operating procedure. So there was a real acceptability with alcohol in the military, not so much anything else, but there was a whole subculture of people in the military that were real okay with that type of lifestyle. I grew up quick. I mean, some of the people from New York took me under their wing, showed me the ropes, what goes on in a big city like Memphis, Tennessee, at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. We don't need to get into details, but it's basically wide open. So, like I said, I grew up quick at that point, and I got a taste of a whole other way of life. And, you know, it felt good. It felt like I was accepted more. I could talk about it in a way where people liked my attitude about the whole party life. And one thing led to another. And, you know, I was stationed on an island of Bermuda, and got into some things there, and got into a lot of trouble, actually. And but I got real fortunate. I actually beat a court martial for quite a bit of substances as an international trafficking and stuff like that. And I won. I beat it in court, kind of thing. So. But I got out of the military at that point, and came back here. And of course, you know, with a mindset of the U.S. military came up against me and lost, so I can pretty much do anything I want and I'll be okay. Well, that's not a good mindset in that lifestyle. But, you know, as I was in my early 20s, met a woman, fell in love, got married, 9 years older than me. It was crazy. It was like I married somebody I didn't really even know, based on all the wrong things, and of course that didn't work. So it started showing me that in that lifestyle, it's not real easy to have successful relationships. And of course, at that point, I didn't care a whole lot. It hurt. It didn't feel good that I failed in a marriage, but right back to the party and the social craziness and single life, and it didn't really matter at that point. Yeah, so all throughout my 20s, I just partied a lot, and I had the type of job that I worked for myself, kind of as an independent agent. So, you know, I could party while I worked, and it was just wide open. I didn't really have any value system. I mean, I had some morals from my grandmother, I think. Like, she was a pretty spiritual, God-fearing woman and loved me a lot. And so I had a basis there of something that was solid, that was true, that was honest, that was authentic. So that was always in me. I was never a hateful person, even in my active addiction, full blown. I just like to have fun, and you know, yeah, I ended up meeting another woman, ended up getting married on the beach in Jamaica, like Mr. Romantic, and that relationship didn't work because I kind of hit a bottom in that relationship and wanted a better way of life for her and I, and she wasn't trying to hear that. So I ended up, at that point is when I went to rehab. I was 30 years old, and I hit a bottom. My bottom was not just desperation from wanting out of active addiction or the pain or whatever, although it was a lot of that, but it was also like a financial bottom I was hitting. And there was some things that I could lose. And that's what made me question something's not right here. And I reached out for help. I stopped in at a place on Market Street, East Market Street, called Self-Help. And I walked in and they were busy and said, "Can you come back in 20 minutes? I went and got a slice of pizza, sat outside, ate it, and then I went back in and they interviewed me. And after a short interview, I said, "Do you think I need help?" And they were like, "Yeah." The kind of question was pretty clear to them based on some of my answers. So I ended up going to rehab. And that was the beginning of even knowing about another way of life or identifying what the problem was so you could even get to a solution, kind of thing. And it was a good experience. It was a good experience overall. Over in Ephrata, Pennsylvania, a place called ARC The Terraces. It was an old resort. It was a nice facility, and so I learned more about myself in 30 days as far as how much I had lied to myself about life, about understanding life, about how I was operating in my life. And, there's some painful realizations. There was a few instances where I got in touch with some older traumatic, painful experiences in my life that I never even really processed. And I began to see that it was important to be honest with yourself about what the real deal is, about what's really going on with you. And so got out of there, and I was married to the woman I married on the beach in Jamaica, and she had a little 1.5-year-old baby when I met her, so had a little stepdaughter. And I just, it was weird because like she still partied, and like after 4 months I couldn't even take it anymore. Like I'm babysitting and she's out partying, and it just was really unbalanced. And I didn't want to get divorced, but I knew if I didn't leave that situation, I was probably not going to make it. And I did relapse one time with 4 months clean and sober on December 5th, 1987. And it was at a company Christmas party. And everybody was telling me how good I was doing. We were out at the Sheridan by the West Manchester Mall, and ran into an old buddy in the lounge. And I had about 35 club sodas and cranberry juices already. And that tells you right there the behaviors were still there. I just wasn't drinking, but more is better kind of thing. If you got it, you got it. So, and I still had it. So, but I ran into an old buddy, and I bought him and his wife a shot of schnapps and a beer. At the time, people did beers and schnapps. But anyway, so I bought them that, and they were telling me how good I was doing. And then he said the one thing, "Oh, it's too bad you quit." I said, "Quit what?" He said, "Man, I got some good blah, 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 some good rock and this and that." I snatched his keys right off the table. I said, "Come on, your drunk ass isn't driving. I am. Let's go." He said, "No, I can't do that to you." I said, "It's not your choice. It's my choice. It's on." So I ended up relapsing that night, and it was a painful, painful experience because it really didn't even work. And I was miserable. And I had to crawl back in recovery rooms the following day and let everybody know. Because, see, I had already taken over recovery. I already had all the answers in 4 months. So I had to go back in and let everybody know I did not have the answers, and that wasn't a fun thing for me to have to do. And I'll never forget this, and I share this experience because when I look back, we all want to be loving and accepting and all this good stuff. And like, hundreds of people gave me a hug and welcome back, and I love you, and you're going to make it. You got a lot of good stuff. All these affirmations that, we're taught is a good way to be with people. But one guy walked up to me and he said, "Oh, okay. Now you're really in trouble." I went, "What?" He said, "Now you're really in trouble. Now you think you can go out and do that one night and just come back the next day and it's going to be okay." And I went, oof. I went, wow. I said, "Man, let me get a hug." He's like, "Yeah, I'll give you a hug, but I'm telling you, you're in trouble." And you know what? I can't tell you them other 200 people that gave me a hug, but I can tell you this guy, Phil, my boy, like, ended up being his roommate down the road. But yeah, I'll never forget that. And what I learned was it's okay to tell somebody the truth out of love. And sometimes, like, a hug is what's called for. Sometimes I love you and it's going to be okay and you're a good person, you're got some good stuff. But sometimes it's like, ruh-roh, this isn't good. What do you think?
And that truth can save somebody's life sometime too.
Amen. What did I remember? What did I keep with me that helped me not BS myself anymore? You know what I'm saying? So, exactly. And so anyway, I got back on a horse and ended up getting a divorce. And I really sunk into recovery. I think pretty well overall when I look back. In a lot of ways, I put to use some principles that I had derived from other people sharing the first few months in meetings, like, okay, you don't have to trust anybody, but you need to trust this process. Stay with the process. Trust the process. If you stay with this process, it's going to take you somewhere, and it's going to be good. And it might not feel good every day, but you're going to end up somewhere where you couldn't even believe it. And it didn't feel like that for me for a long time. Like I wasn't getting a lot of outwardly blessings early on, and I couldn't see the blessing of recovery as fast as I saw some other people being blessed in recovery. And I had an attitude about it. Like, me and God had to have a talk about that. Like, what'd you bless that idiot for? Like, help me out here. Like, that guy is a a-hole, and you just blessed him big time. And I don't get it. Because, like, I know I'm not that much of an a-hole. Like, what's going on? Like, I couldn't understand. And so I had questions, and I had some attitudes to get rid of. And, I can look back now and realize that I did start to try to trust the process. And boy, I was a hard head early on. Like, I did all kinds of things that they tell you you're not supposed to do. I'm the anomaly. Like, everything I wouldn't do that you're supposed to do is supposed to take you out. And I was so hard-headed in my journey that I wasn't going to let some stuff take me out because I had enough inner strength to not. But man, I could have learned a lot of stuff earlier on, I guess, and I just wasn't ready to surrender. I didn't know how to surrender. I didn't know how to fully let go on a deeper level, like with both hands. Like, I always had one hand holding on to something because I can make some stuff happen on my own will. Like, that's my history. I can make some stuff happen. And so a full and unconditional 2 hands up in the air surrender is a very foreign concept for me. I said, I'll bow my knee to God, but I'm not bowing my knee to no other man. Like, I got a couple sponsors, like, fired them in a week, told them they're out of their mind. I'll punch you in your head, man. Don't talk to me like that. Like, I had trouble submitting to another human, like, to another guy. Like, it just, and I saw other people doing, and guys call them their pigeons, and, you got to do what people tell you, take suggestions, and they didn't feel like suggestions to me. Like they felt like orders to me. I spit that stuff out. I couldn't do it. And they told you, you're not supposed to go certain places. I went anywhere I wanted to go. I went in all nightclubs. People got in fights over the fact that I was drinking soda in an all nightclub just because one guy was going to buy me a drink. Another guy stepped in and would say, "Leave him alone. He's doing good." And they start arguing. And I'm standing back on, this is crazy. This is crazy out here. And then I almost got hit in the head with a beer bottle by a girl because I said something very not nice. And that's when I realized I don't belong here. Yeah, this little country girl cocked back with a beer bottle and was getting ready to hit me right in my head. And I said, "I'm so sorry. I was wrong." And I begged for forgiveness, and she did. And I left. And I didn't go in those places for a long time after that. That was what I needed to see. I had a tough lesson there. But anyway.
So Mike,
I did not
how long do you have clean and sober?
December 5th was 32 years clean and sober.
Wow. So you must be doing something right?
Well, yeah, I mean, you always kind of think you're doing something right, but I can tell you there was a couple crossroads in the journey that I wasn't. I was happy for periods of time, and then I realized that I still wasn't like completely like, I guess, healed from some stuff, and I was still operating in a way that wasn't completely. I didn't feel free. I didn't feel fully truthful with myself. I didn't feel like I was missing something. And what ended up happening was like I was in trouble psychologically, and I had to do some work, and I had to get some more help. I had to raise my hand and say, "Somebody help me. It's not going well." And what I learned through some outside type of help on my journey was like I had to get some extra help, and I had to put myself in a position where I was going to be confronted with me, isolated from all the busyness, all the noise of my own life and this world, and once I was isolated for days at a time, I really couldn't run from me anymore because the people around me were doing the same kind of work I was doing, and I got boxed in to the point where there was nowhere left to go or run, and I had to face me on a deeper level, and like kind of fell to pieces in a healthy way, and got in touch with some of my inner fears and my inner pains, and kind of let my higher power kind of restore me and build that back up. That once I let go of some of the pain, there was a space where God could come in and begin to fill that and give me a new strength and a new true love in my heart that made me realize that it's all about the condition of the heart, and the heart's got only two conditions: either abundance, like you have everything you need and you're good, or scarcity, like you feel like there's something missing and I got to get something. And when you got to get something, you're always trying to take something, and that's not a really fulfilling way to live this short journey we call life here on the planet. It's about knowing you have everything you need and it's going to be okay, and then you can give unconditionally because you can't outgive God. And the more your flow is giving, the more God can just keep giving you even more strength and love in that space. And it's an ongoing. I got goosebumps just saying it. Like it's incredible, but I had to get me out of the way. And that took a while to even know how much I was in my own way. And, I had some real good people along the way give me little bits and pieces. Like, it doesn't matter if you figure out everybody in the world who's lying to you. You need to figure out where you're lying to yourself. That's where your freedom's going to come from. And the journey's going to start making more sense. So, you and I used to joke about it. We say you got to keep the focus on ourselves, and that's truer than we even knew when we said it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
because and so today my life's beyond my wildest dreams. It really is. boy, oh boy. You know, I've taken different tests. I've read, you know, my top books in my life, The Search for Serenity and The Road Less Traveled and People of the Lie and, you know, The Knight in Rusty Armor. So there's 3 or 4 books that just, man, those books right there will just give you some principles and some concepts to bring into your way of seeing things and the way to be and let them form who you are in God's love with those understandings and wisdom. And it's just, it's a great way to go, man. Like, love's reward is in its function. The fact I can be loving is its reward. It's not about what I get back. And because of that, like, yeah, I like Mother Teresa said, how do you do it? She said, one soul at a time. Like, we got to live in the moment. That's all we got. And it's a cliche, but it's so true. And I just try to respond, you know, with, you know, like what you and I've talked about before, acceptance and not expectation, and love in my heart. And the next situation that comes down the pike, do the next right thing. You know, God puts things in my past so I can learn from it, or I can respond to it, or whatever. I was on the beach this winter down in Florida, and these guys are coming up the beach, and I looked at my girlfriend, and I said, oh boy, here we go. These guys are hustling something. Well, here, they were living in a halfway house selling these little homemade cakes for money to support the halfway house they were living in. This dude got almost like a year clean and sober. He's out on the beach selling cakes for donations for the halfway house. So guess what? I stand up and say, you're not even going to believe this, brother. I got 32 years clean and sober. He's like, wow. And we got into this whole thing, and I started giving him some of what God gave me. And my girl's standing there looking at me like, you know, and this guy's just like, bro, I got goosebumps. He goes, this is the greatest experience of my day. I'm so glad I met you. And I just gave it like to him. Like he was real available. And so it was just, you know, you don't know what you're going to run into out here in the world, you know. People are hopeless a lot of times, are in pain, and I can still be in my own pain sometimes, but overall, man, it's a great ride, and God has blessed me without details. God has blessed me, and He's blessing me even more and more. Like, the stuff that's going on in my life is beyond my wildest dreams of what it was last year, which was already beyond my wildest dreams. So, yeah, it's
Well, let me
a good
ask you
run.
this, Mike. Let me ask you this. I know, you know, you've been through a lot of major pain in your recovery. Just in the last 5 minutes, can you kind of maybe speak on one of those situations in your recovery that was very painful to get through, and to speak about how you got through that without using?
Wow. Whew.
I know there's people watching that maybe they've relapsed. You know, maybe they've relapsed and
Right.
they figure, you know, the pain's too great. I can't get through this. Or maybe someone's watching and they've never experienced recovery. And you know how we were. We could never imagine living life on life's terms without having something in our body. So
Right.
you know, speak about a situation that, you know, in your recovery that you made it through without picking up, and how you did it.
Well, there's been, you know, 3 but seriously traumatic experiences in my recovery. 5 years into recovery, the death of my second wife was a suicide. She was also in recovery and struggled and relapsed, subsequently suicided about a year into our marriage. So I did not pick up through that whole experience. Although I was grief-stricken, I wound up in the hospital a year later for 10 days with a major episode of depression. But I did not pick up. Matter of fact, I fought them on taking medications for a little while till they explained to me why they were necessary based on where I was at. I was in a rollover car accident when my third wife, 17 years ago, was pregnant with my daughter, and my 2 stepkids were in the back. We were in a rollover car accident, got smashed into the side flipped over, rolled over, head zippered open, broken back, broken ribs, and was on medication, heavy stuff, for about 3 months, and did not pick up or misuse the medication in that experience. And then subsequently, 6 years ago, I went through divorce, where I was in a painful realization for 3 or 4 years that this marriage was not going to work, based on some situations, and trying to have faith, but getting to a point where I actually slept in the basement alone for 3 or 4 years. And during that time was in pain, in a fetal position sometimes, that wanted to act out with not feeling that way with either medication or drugs or potential adultery, and did not act out, and came to a place where I learned through reaching out and plugging in with some good people that I needed the inner strength to stand up for myself and speak for myself, not in a loud way, yelling at people, but speaking that I have some value here, and I'm not gonna live a certain way. It's not okay. And so, that's what I learned. I mean, that I sometimes don't speak up for myself until I blow up. And I've learned to begin to, when something's not flowing right, I've learned to speak truth to a situation before it gets to a point where I'm emotionally not okay. So yeah, we have to take care of our mind and ourselves, our bodies, our minds, our spirit. We have to begin to take care of ourselves on a daily basis in all those ways. As a human being, I have very complicated things to deal with with myself. But I began to learn to nurture myself and speak to myself in a good voice and a calm voice and a loving voice. And because you teach people how to treat you, I don't have some of the controversies I used to have that causes pain in relationships anymore, because I conduct myself better. I'm honest with myself. I'm going to be honest with you. And you can still have a lot of fun and enjoy your life. But be true to yourself, and be honest with others, and they appreciate it. They say, "Man, you're so authentic. You're so just, man, you are who you are." It's and people begin to trust that and are attracted to that, because you just be who you are. Be yourself. Like, you don't have to try to be anybody else. So.
Amen. Well, Mike, out of time here. I want to thank you for coming on here and sharing. And one of the things that you spoke about is that, this recovery is a process. Anyone who says they're in recovery, they're in a process. There's no destination. So it's, we're always working on ourselves, different levels, different depths, dealing with the grieving of some toxic relationships and trauma that's been in our life since childhood.
Right.
So, I want to thank you for the courage to share and for your transparency. And I know there's people out there that are watching this and maybe hearing for the first time, that there's hope. Sometimes it's real easy for us to judge addiction. It looks a certain way, or sounds a certain way, or smells a certain way. And addiction doesn't discriminate,
No.
and above all that, there is hope. There is hope. And there are loving and caring people out there that have helped you and I get to where we are at today. I mean, we didn't do it ourselves. And God has a way of allowing situations to happen for people to come into our life. So thanks again, Mike. Appreciate you, brother. I love you, man. And
amen. Love you too, man. Ask for help when you need it, brother. That's all I can tell you. No matter, if you either know something or you don't. If you don't, you better ask for some help. And there's nothing wrong with asking for help. That's worked for me unbelievably. So, yeah.
Amen. All right. Well, thank you. Everyone, thanks for joining in. And stay tuned for some more awesome testimonies. Peace.
Peace.
You still there, bro?
Yeah, thanks.
All right. I just turned it off. Let me give you a call here in a second.
All right.
All right.